we have Pradeep Mittalji with us. He's the chairman of Hyderabad Angels, the leading investment firms of Hyderabad. And he's the executive chairman of Goose Technologies as well. So let us benefit from his exhaustive knowledge. He's an encyclopedia of investments. Sir, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll try to keep it as short as possible before the lunch. And I think Sridevi forgot to mention, I'm a vice president of TiE Hyderabad chapter. So I have a lot more responsibility than just whatever she mentioned there. So I'm in part of TiE for last more than 10 years. And I've been very active with the TiE as much as I can add value to the ecosystem in Hyderabad. So please feel free to ask questions. They gave me a topic. Srini has asked me to take a topic on building businesses for scale. It's not an easy topic. It's actually a very difficult topic. So I want to know how many of you are here who are running businesses? Everybody's running businesses. Oh, that's amazing. That's beautiful. Fine, then I think I should expect some good questions from all of you then. Let me just give my background so that I can justify to this topic. I had a company called Magna Infotech, which I started in India in 2002. With IT staffing services with just a couple of employees. And I exited. By the time I exited in 2013, it was 10,000 employees company. So, and right now I took over a small company, which is a product company, and it's in pharma compliance. And for the last 2 years, I'm trying to revive the company. It's not doing very well, but this year, I think we'll probably make the profit, and we're trying to see how to scale. So product is a different scaling challenges. The earlier company was services, was a different scaling challenges. So I'll try to share my experience, share my learnings with you, but I would prefer if you have questions, please stop me in between and ask the questions. Because scaling has got two very important factors. One is business, based on what business you are running. So there's a scaling challenges based on a business that you're running, whether it's a product, service, B2C, B2B, or it's a retail, food joint, whatever it is. And second is your individual character. It plays a very big, significant part of scaling your business. So it's your own internal capacity, whether you really want to scale it to the next level, and what you have to give up to scale to the next level and all that. So I'll just very quickly, I have some few points I mentioned out there. I'll just go through that, and do stop if you have any questions, okay? So what kind of business it is? That's very important to know when you're talking about scaling. So I don't think I'm expert in all businesses, but I can at least tell you some of the characters of what it has to go through when you want to scale a business. And I'm sure everybody would like to scale a business here? Yes. Everyone? Wow. Okay, we'll see how many people are willing to sacrifice a lot of things here. So, you know what, I'm just talking about B2B, B2C. You should know which space you are in. What are you? You're a product, makes a huge difference. If you're a product company, that means your scaling will be going beyond geographies and all like. If you're services, then again you'll have different challenges of having multiple offices and all like. And the number of employees will be a lot more larger than the product company. And there are many other options, technology aggregator, you can just be a supply chain management. So there are a lot of options in this space that you want to be, and every industry has its own challenges. Fortunately, being in Hyderabad Angels, I have had 12 investments in startups, and a couple of those startups actually are doing very well in the way they're scaling today. When they came to us, they're very, very small, less than 1 crore revenue a year. Today, all of them have scaled to 10 crore plus revenue, at least 3 of those investments. So we also play a role with them, how we help them guide to so that they can scale to the next stage and all like. So I divided the business into couple of stages. I'll come to that. So these are the different industry which you all are aware of it. So I'll go to the point, metrics for scale. So first stage is less than 1 crore. I divided the stage into 3 categories, 1 crore, 10 crores, and 100 crores. I've not gone beyond those other categories and all. Like, if you have any questions, you can ask me. We can probably put you the right person, or I can answer some other questions if I'm aware of it. So when you're 1 crore, you're almost like a very initial stage, early stage. I'm not going to answer your question on funding and all right now, but I'll tell you why it is, what is the important part of it when you're at 1 crore. When you start a business, it should be there in your back of your mind that I'm not going to be happy once I reach profitability, once I'm very happy, once I became number one in my area of geography or area of space or area of expertise that I'm in. I would like to keep on growing and growing and growing. Now, this character has to be imbibed inside your personality way too early in your aspect of it. It's not very easy that, okay, if I become 10 crores, I think I'll now try to become a different company overnight and all. It doesn't happen that easily and all that. Because one of the biggest trait is the team that you start having in your company is very important to know that whether the company, the business that you are in can scale to the next level or not. So, a lot of people have come across, they are very good in interacting with the clients initially when you get the first order. Other day somebody made a presentation, he even actually showed his first purchase order from a large MNC client. So they were so excited about it. So we are very excited when you get the first order, second order, third order, whether it's a small amount, whether it's a large amount, doesn't matter. We're very excited. So we interact with the clients on a regular basis to ensure that we service them very well. Whether you're in the weaving area, doesn't matter. Whatever you are in. You might be probably your shops, might be your clients and all like. Network. Almost most of the time, the first clients are our own internal, our own reference, or our friend's reference, or our family reference. It is not done through the using some marketing techniques and all like. We want to prove of concept to go through a known person so that in case if there's an issue also, we can manage the issue and come out of it and all like. So all our initial clients are always through some reference, either neighbor's reference or whoever it is. At least through some known reference, we get the first clients. Now, when we get the first client, very important is, like the way you are all sitting here, I wish that when I moved to Hyderabad, I had a very vibrant TIE and other organizations to give me a chance for networking here. There was only, like, I was a part of CII, which was very active at that time, and NASSCOM just started in those days. So it's very important network, very important network. And network in your own expertise. Network not in all expertise. Network in your area of expertise, based on what industry you are in. Fortunately, today in India, or in every city, there's an organization for almost every business today. There's some organization for every business today. So I'm now running a pharma compliance. I'm a member of Indian Institute of Packaging. I'm a member of Pharma Excel. And since a technology company, I'm also a member of NASSCOM. So it just gives me what's happening in my space. I get all the event emails in my space coming to me whenever they happen, either in India or outside India. At least I know which companies are presenting, who's sponsoring, what's happening, who's speaking of what. It's so important to ensure that you are always aware of that. I'll tell you why it's important to be aware of all those things. So that's the part, research. One thing we all forget, that I'm the best in my space. We think that, okay, I got a few clients, I'm getting some revenues. I think I know this area extremely well. In my last company, I was doing a staffing services, nothing but taking a 4-year experienced Java guy and putting an IBM. That's all the business model was. It's a 30-year-old business model. It's nothing that I invented. So it's not like anybody is an expert in that space and all that. But the way you execute it, the nuances that you go through it to ensure that you meet the client SLAs, you meet the client expectations, and the strike rates and all like, I think that's where everybody differentiates and all like. So please remember that you have to be so good in your work that when you go to 10 clients, 20 clients, the quality of work doesn't go down even 1%. It doesn't go down by 1%. And remember, you cannot manage all the clients at the same time. And that's where, when you do a research, you'll come to know, I have gone through the Gartner papers. Some of the papers are easily available for free. Some are unfortunately expensive papers, you have to buy them. But like NASSCOM has got lots of papers in technology. So most of your industry organizations that you're part of it, they'll have some papers in your space. Read the papers. See who's the one who's doing what in your space. So don't try to be ignorant of that aspect at all. So anyone can do it. Just type in Google, you'll get a lot of information, but go deeper and deeper and deeper. Spend at least 2 to 4 hours or at least 2 hours a week on this research of your space. Don't forget that. It's very important. Nuances of businesses. We all actually forget about the simple, small things. My office is not clean. Ensure that someone is cleaning your office. You'll be very surprised that my first mentor in the early days was insisting on that please make sure that your office is clean, your walls are painted properly, you have at least one small paint, photograph or an art picture on your wall, or something on there and all like. Or when someone walks into your reception, it looks at least decent enough. And let me tell you, it doesn't cost you any more than 5,000-6,000 rupees. If you can afford a plant to maintain that, keep a small plant and all that. Small things adds a phenomenal amount of value for the employees when they walk in and work there. Same thing in your business. If you're in a business, I was in a business, right now I'm doing a business of pharma. It's so important to understand what are the challenges the client are facing. A lot of times the client will give you time. If you have made a mistake, honest mistake, client will not get mad with you. If you made an unhonest mistake, if you told them something and you're doing something else, they will stop working with you. So every client is your ambassador for the next clients and everything and all. So don't assume that the client is always happy with you, because a lot of times client may not even inform you that they are unhappy with you. And you're assuming that, okay, he's paying, so he's happy with me. But once you ask for a reference from a right person from the top of the client, when you don't get the reference, something is wrong somewhere. So that's very important for you to find out, and you won't know that answer to that. I'll come to that point a little bit later also. So nuances. So how do you know the nuances of the businesses sometimes? So talk to the expert. Today, fortunately in India, there are a lot of people who must have retired from that business of your knowledge. Go and approach them. Go and meet them. Go and get hold of them, and talk to them that, can you tell me exactly how this business you do it, if you were supposed to do it? So in my pharma, I have today 4 advisors from this expert of life sciences. 1 from India and 3 from outside India. And you'll be very surprised, I don't know any one of them personally. It's just through my contacts, network, and everything, I just picked them up and got them on my board. So they actually tell me that this is how you should do it, this is how you should present it, this is how you should talk about it. Because I'm not a pharma expert. I'm not a domain expert at all in this space. So there are people available out there, and good thing is they don't even charge anything for meeting and talking to them for 2-3 hours. After that, you decide whether you want to make them your mentor or advisor or what you want to do with them. Very important that we all forget hiring every week, every month, 10% of your time should go in hiring. Whether you hire the person or not doesn't matter. Do you know how much you can know by interviewing a person? How many people interviews people? At least, how often you interview? Not enough. How often do you interview? That's great. Anybody else who interviews less than once a week?
5 times a month.
5 times a month? That's great. I keep interviewing all the time, and mostly I like to interview my competitors' employees. Yes. Without getting into any of the issues of the ethics and the thing and all, like, very professionally, you can actually find out what's happening in your space. And the amount of knowledge, amount of information, amount of things that you get, you'll be surprised. Because you need to know what metrics your competitors are following. You need to know where is it, how is it growing and all like. So am I in the same space or not? Or what is that thing is wrong with me? Why I'm not growing faster than my competitor? So without knowing the client names of the competitor, I can get a lot of other information which will help me. What kind of culture are they following in the company? Yes.
Doesn't it affect the credibility factor if there is no requirement?
In what way? Today, when you are working for IBM, you think Accenture can't interview you?
No, I'm not
Then-
talking about that. Like if I don't have requirement.
Nothing wrong with that thing. I can always say no to a person. I'm not committed to hire him, correct?
No, like if I be a brand that, okay, these guys just interview.
That's up to depend on how you interview them.
See, I know some guys.
It depends on how you interview them, correct?
There is a smart, there is a
Sometimes,
smart thing called
no,
G.
when you really require a candidate, when you put an ad, nobody will turn up.
Do you think how many people come up with the ad? I don't think I hired anyone through the ads. No, I'm just telling you that. I don't think you can hire people through ads.
Whatever, daily requirement may not be coming.
Are you saying that you want to scale the business without hiring? I have hired people when I interviewed them and I had no requirement. I just hired him because he was really too good for me. Okay? I told the person, he was a double master's from USA. He was an amazing guy. He says, I want to move back to Hyderabad. I told him, I don't have a job for you, but I don't mind paying you for 1 year. If you're okay with that, and if you're okay to that, and luckily within 2-3 months, I had so much of work for him that he was actually with me for 10-11 years. So it's completely wrong saying that I'm just interviewing for information now.
How do I reach you in case you are interested in that?
I did.
Just get your email ID and send
No, you have to keep on networking all the time. That's why I'm saying. You have to keep on networking to people. Like you are here now. Okay, talk to someone. He says, I know I'm looking for a technology person. Someone mentioned that. Okay, I'm looking for a HR person. I'm looking for a IT person. So you just keep spreading the word around.
What I'm asking
Huh?
you is, in case I want to get hired by you, how do I reach you?
You want to get hired by me, then you have to figure out how to reach out to me. You have to work hard for that. Yes, go to a TIE website or go to Hyderabad Angels website or go to somewhere in the thing and get the information. If you are keen on doing it, you have to work hard for that, wherever you have to reach out to them. Or go to an event where I'm involved and just get hold of me and just talk to them. That's what I do. That's what I do. Yes,
This is regarding mentors.
yes.
If we are at this stage and we are looking for mentors, do we look for mentors who are, going to help us, give us a strategic direction, or should we look at mentors who will, fill up for our weaknesses? Help us with our strengths or fill up for our weaknesses?
What is it you need for? What is it you need for?
And I have an MVP, and I clearly am lost between 3 or 4 priorities that are right there in front of me right now. And
Mentor is required for someone who understands you. Who understands you. Remember, mentors are not running your businesses. Mentors are there to understand you so that when you go back with a problem or with a sounding board, okay, this person knows how good I am in executing what and everything, so he'll only guide me or show me some more points, not too steep a point which I can't climb. Simple things which I can go forward with it. Okay? So, like I'm entering a company, I'm already in board, so they had a problem with a employee, very senior employee. And he was started creating a major cultural problem within the company. And they had a 1.5 month, he's a very senior technical guy, and they had a release date in next 1.5 months. And they told if I let this person go, I'll probably miss my release date by another 2-3 more months. I told, don't worry about it. You're going to spoil your culture by keeping him, let him go tomorrow. After spending an hour understanding every aspect of it. And they let him go next year. And they're like so happy, and I think they may not even miss the date also. Okay? But I've been talking to them for the last 2, 3, 4 years, So I know exactly how they think, I know exactly how they do and all that. So hiring is very important. Please keep on interviewing people. In my final days of my last company, I was spending 30% of my time actually interacting with the people or in HR issues of the company. So hiring doesn't mean just hiring people all the time. It also means interacting with your own team also. Yes? You have questions?
Yeah, you did service and business for a long time.
Yes,
Okay. Now, after doing, there are so many dynamics you must have learned in the service.
that's right.
They transformed into product.
Yes.
It takes 2 to 3 years to get into the cash flows and all that.
Yes.
What kind of a challenges and how you could cope up with all that gap?
We are going to move away from this topic of scaling, but I can answer that question. It's a completely north-south or east-west kind of a scenarios. Services for me is like an action every second. Okay, it's like I'm moving at a phenomenal pace. It's actually more becomes of a cash flow business than any other challenge in the long run. Whereas product is unfortunately, with my experience in the last 15, 20 years, technology has got no value in the world unless you can sell a particular product to a client. So I only value technology 10, 15%. So the product is a continuous feedback from the industry or from the individuals whether we're in the right space or not. So the product that the company that I took over, which I realized after a while that it's a good to have product. It is not a must to have product. So that's a huge challenge for me. Now, not only that I had to make a good product, I had to create a market for that also now. So yes, we had a cash flow issue still last year. I was funding the whole company. But this year, we'll probably first time we even got an international client sitting just from Hyderabad without spending any extra money or any visit to the client in USA. So it's a lot of patience. So here my transactions will be like 1 a month probably. So from 1 a second to 1 a month is a huge amount of change in my own thought process. Okay? Yes?
So the hiring thing, so if you hire somebody who has the right skill set you don't have,
Okay.
but doesn't have the right attitude or
Okay.
respect for work, and they're very young, like just started off. So do you
That's
give them
actually a very
space?
important question for me. I have never had a person for skills. I only had a person for attitude. Just doesn't have right attitude, he won't even come near me at all. And if he doesn't respect for work, he'll not come near me.
So you should let go of the hire as soon as
I won't even hire. Still, I make 50% mistakes in my hiring, but yes, I'll let go of the person. I'll let go. Skills you can always learn. Not maybe in a short period, maybe in 3 months, maybe in 6 months, maybe in 1 year. But the person has got the right attitude, right, because very important that please remember the way you're built, your personality and all that, that's how you're going to build your culture in the office. So your culture comes from you. So the culture comes from you, that means the first hire, the second hire, the fifth hire, the 15th hire, 20th hire, because you saw what is that works for with you and all. So all the employees that you have in the company today are based by the way you hire them. So you have built the culture. So if anything is wrong, it's because something that what you are doing is wrong. So it's very important that what kind of culture you want to create in the office. That's one other point that I have mentioned in the slide also. 10 crores. So this is a smaller stage. Client management. Now what happens in the first thing, we interact with the clients. Now we have become 10 times bigger. I can't talk to every client. I can't deal with every client. So do I have the right person to manage my client? Very important to ensure that the client, quality of the management of the client does not go down even 1%. Actually should get better now. Why it should get better? Because most of the clients, at least enterprise clients, loves to have escalation metrics on the vendor side. They always would like to work with someone at a middle level, at a lower level, so that if something is wrong, they know they can go to escalate the issue to someone else in the top. Every client prefers that. So it's very important to make sure that whoever is going to do client management is actually doing a better job than what you were doing when you were interacting with clients. Systems. Now slowly systems starts playing a role. Now you cannot afford to buy all the systems. Today there are a lot of softwares that are available on subscription basis all over the world. There are thousands and thousands of softwares. So start using some of the systems to keep track of the clients, track of your employees, track of your process, whatever you can do. Whether it's a simple Excel sheet, doesn't matter. Document everything in some format, whatever you think is the right way. Some format, some process where you can go back and run some metrics on that to see that is it really working the same way or not. Start identifying some metrics of your business. In my staffing, my biggest metrics was no-shows. If a person is offered a job, is he going to join or not? So the industry thing was 70% show and 30% no-show. So we made it to 95% show and 5% no-show. That was our biggest metrics. And second thing is the attrition. So every industry will have your own metrics. So identify which are the metrics that are relevant to you, to your business, and keep track it and start building some systems around it. It doesn't matter even if you put it in a white paper to start with. But do keep putting that. Your notebook should always get filled up very fast initially. Audits, surprise audits, because you cannot afford audits full time. What do you mean with surprise audits? Ask your friend, ask the person who is not involved in your business, if it's an HR person, if it's someone else, or ask your advisor to talk to some of your clients independently of you. See what do they think about your company. What do you think about your offerings? Will you give them a repeat order? Will you give them more business to them? You don't have to do like 100%, do at least 10%. And find out from outside whether employees are happy working there or not. Are they working because they need a salary? Are they working because they enjoy working there? So just again a surprise, small thing you figure it out. It's very important you do that. So surprise audits and finance. Because at 10 crore, you are actually running a decent cash flow scenarios and all that. Make sure you have a very good auditor, a reputable auditor. Let me tell you, a reputable auditor doesn't have to be very expensive. They can still charge you 50,000 rupees to 1 lakh rupees for audit fees a year. But you can spend another 25,000 rupees to do an internal one-time audit in between the year. To make sure that there's nothing wrong and there's no leakage or nothing is going wrong in your finances or in your compliances. So a lot of clients today again want that you're compliant, that you're meeting all the government compliances very tightly. And that's where actually you're stuck in scalability. A lot of companies actually cannot scale because they're not 100% compliance. And at the same time, make sure you get all the certifications. If you are a small company, everybody can get MSME certificate. It adds small value, not a large value, but adds a small value. And if you are a woman-owned company, make sure you get the certification because a lot of companies has some small quota of giving to the women entrepreneurs. Every company will have that. So use every option that you have to reach to the client. But end of the day, you can enter there, but your quality of service has to anyway match with the rest of the competition. So getting an entry sometimes can become easier, but the quality will keep you for a long period. Team. So that's where the hiring, when you do in the first stage, in the 10 crore stage, team plays a very big role. Extremely a high role because you're going to now watch them doing your role of the business that you're doing. So first, you have 10 times more clients now. So that means you'll have probably 5 teams or 4 teams for actually talking to the clients on a regular basis and getting a business. Your job is to ensure that they are doing the right way. Are they telling the right things to the clients? They're not telling the wrong things. And are they delivering what they're telling and all? So team plays a very important role because they are now duplicating you. They are duplicating you what you wanted to when you started the company. And that's when you start delegating in a small way. Okay, I'm not going to go for this meeting. You go to the meeting and convince the client. So this is where the personal characteristic starts kicking in now. How good are you in delegation? So sometimes we can be control freaks. Okay, or this guy, I sent him to this place in the client. I don't think he has reached. He's not called me, whether he's reached there or he's having a coffee somewhere or he's went somewhere else. We're always control freaks. And we maybe keep calling him sometimes and we are putting our own nervousness on him, pressure on him. So way we behave has a direct impact on the team that we deal with. So in my past company, the way I deal with it is, I ensure that when the account manager or the business manager is going to the client, is completely empowered. Everything that he has to decide, right there is the client. In a well-defined parameters, and the offering is something beyond what the client is asking, then he has to come back. But if it is well-defined, he doesn't have to come back to anybody, including his manager. So the client sometimes says that, I can see that you can decide right here, but I can't decide because I need to get my approval internally. So he gets very comfortable now dealing with this gentleman. And not only that, very important the other thing is that make sure your team is always incentivized. Always incentivized. In my company, I have around 70-80% of the employees are incentivized. And very transparent. They can see the information, how much they earn every day on a system. It helped me a lot to scale my business. And not only scale, to grow this each individual to the next level. Now increase your hiring time. Because that's what you need now, correct? You need more people. Because now you are 10 crores, you need a lot more people. So you have to increase your hiring time. Don't say that I have to reduce my hiring time, let somebody else hire. Very important to make sure that at least for the 2 to 3 levels down, you only hire all the time. Or at least you always interview them, detailed interview them. Maybe after that while, if they have 200 employees, maybe the entry-level employees, you meet them only. But at least 2 to 3 levels down, make sure you meet them, because you're defining the culture of the company. So it's very important that you meet them, you interview them every time. So that's where your hiring time goes up a lot. Culture, and now you build your cultures with that part. You define the culture. Like my culture in the previous company was, even in this current company, I had no office timings. I don't believe in office timings. So at 8 hours a day, you decide, and you work with the client, and let client decide for you, and your manager decides for you. I'll not decide that for you. And it worked very well. It will work for almost 13, 14 years. The first 10 years, even I had a HR manager. The direct reporting manager was the HR manager for the individual. And we had only one holiday type, paid holiday, 2 paid holidays a month. There's no other holiday type at all in the system. And there's no leave application. Just inform the manager and send it to the accounts person that I'm off, and manager says done. So as simple, we removed all administrative management of the individuals. The benefits were so simplified that nobody has to talk about it. Why is he getting more benefit, I'm getting more benefit, and all the stuff. I asked someone to prepare what kind of people, when I had 45-50 sales manager working around 7 cities in India. So everybody has a taxi bill, this bill, hotel bill, travel bill, all kind of bills. Now somebody's claiming 400 rupees, someone's claiming 200 rupees for lunch. Now how do you define that? How do you differentiate that? If you're in Gurgaon, the coffee itself will cost 100 rupees. For an app, it will cost 25 rupees. So how do you differentiate that? Both are right. So we build a system slowly and start entering all the data into the system. So next time when somebody claims that, we make sure that he's only 5-10% off that number. So once you build the base from our employees, and they were very happy, the approval goes very fast. They don't have to worry about how much they're spending. They know that's the right way to spend because they're not going to be questioned unless only one person cheated us in the span of 10 years. Only one person. Because we could catch that and we could figure it out and we could warn him, but he didn't change, that's okay. So it's give them the freedom so they actually will go and do the job. So you don't have to worry about, they're not doing the job.
Just a
Yes.
question here. When you go from interacting with clients to client management,
Yes.
I think you're actually weaning away from the clients.
Absolutely right.
And that's very tough. It's very sensitive because, the clients like you suddenly extremely busy and you don't have that much time. So they understand that things have changed. There are people who are managing them, but they want that touch of yours. They want to interact. They want you to, make them feel special. So that's tough weaning them out.
That is, you can't scale in business.
No, I know
sir.
it's necessary, but do you have tips? How do you, do you?
I just stopped going. I do a surprise going. I don't go for business. I just go and meet them to understand what's happening with my company, how they treat my company. I'll give an example of that. For me, it's very important that when my employee of my company goes to a client, he is respected. He's not treated as you wait here, we'll call you whenever you're free. He's actually respected. The company which I took over, I found that we were not getting respect. So we had one of the biggest pharma clients, but there was no respect at all. First thing I did in the first 1 year, I got the respect back. So it's so for you, the client, you don't have to go and meet the client. Because what you're doing is you're creating the respect for the company, not for you. Because if you're creating respect for you, then the company is not there behind you. You create respect for the company, first you are big. When you're in 1 crore, 10 crore stage, you're bigger than the company. But slowly, company becomes bigger than you. And that transition has to go through that. So you have to let go the interaction with the client. You'll be very surprised from my previous thing. I only have 2-3 friends from the industry. Very close friends. So much interact with some thousands of managers. But only 2-3 are my very close friends. So it's not required that you need to be meeting them on a regular basis. It's very tough call. It's a very tough call.
You don't need to. What I was asking was, is there a way that you figured out as to how do you let them?
Okay, when I had my first team, I had to let them go. I had to do 3 or 4 iterations to know whether they'll really do the job which I was doing. It wasn't easy. So I did the first manager I hired. and let him go in 2 months. Second manager I had, let him go in 2 months. Third manager I had, let him go in 2 months. The fourth one, okay, now I can see that this person is actually meeting the expectation, what I want and what the client wants. And he's stuck around for 10 years. So it's not easy, you're right. It goes a lot of permission. There's no book example or process that you can say that, okay, I'll follow this thing, will work or not. No.
I think it's also to do with the customer's expectation of whether he's getting the right answer from the right person.
You're right. And how much you're empowering that person.
Empowering the person, how much he's trained and enabled.
Yes.
As a head of Hyderabad Angels too, you advise a lot of startups, and the most common reason for investment would be scaling up, and the one reason will be geographical expansion.
Okay.
Geographical expansion. Then there's a big doubt, like most of the startup founders start doing micromanagement. And how do you advise as a person who run a firm of 10,000 people, then the problem of new geographical areas, and how you advise a lot of young entrepreneurs who are sitting here, what's the thin line difference between micromanagement and management?
That's actually a very good question. I learned that on my way and all that.
And third category, somebody who doesn't want to manage. They should manage themselves.
Then you have enough money in your bank that you don't worry about it. You don't mind losing some money here and there, you know. So there are people of that nature. I know some people who are doing that. Let me answer that part of it. The way I scaled my business was, I mentioned earlier the metrics. So I took the nuances of the metrics, which people don't see on a regular basis, or my team doesn't see it on a regular basis. The big thing they'll see the revenues, they'll see the service levels, they'll see all the big things that we are all aware of it. So that I never managed. So I slowly started building systems where 80% was getting managed by the team very well. 15-20% was not getting managed at all. So the gaps, so I used to actually spend time to identify those gaps, whether the person is doing intentionally or he is doesn't have the knowledge or is not aware of it. 90% is not aware of it. So I need to work with them. I need to follow them. I need to send an email that I see there is a lacking in this space. So what are we doing about fixing this and all? So I used to manage by gaps. I used to manage with small things which people will forget looking at that. Even if it got me, let's say, a huge contract, I'll surely back him because he's already incentivized for that. So I don't need to go and put him on the like a hill high to say that okay, you've done a great job. All I have to tell him is now, tell me how are you going to go about doing the whole thing. Okay, fine, your congratulations, all done in 2 minutes. Now we'll talk about 20 minutes, how we're going to go about it. Who's going to work on it? Which team is going to work? Why are you going to have that person, not this person? So we used to start killing the favorism also in the process. A lot of times the manager will say, no, I think I'm very comfortable working with this gentleman, but I know from the past or whatever data I have that this person doesn't have that experience. So I have to sometimes sit down and make the decision, why are you doing that? So then he'll probably come, okay, fine, I think maybe it's the wrong thing, let me try it. So before you start the work, before you start the project, you actually spend small time to ensure that you don't have any problem while executing the work to the client. So don't 100%, so you actually do a very little micromanagement. They could take any business from you.
I agree.
Okay, so that doesn't work at all. Because I'm putting the company first. As we keep growing, we start putting company first. 100 crores. Now you're 100 crores, now it's a established company. Everything is all set, but at the same time, can you take your eye off the business? No. Maybe you want to go to 500 crores from there, 1,000 crores, or whatever you want to achieve. See how much time we have? Okay. So now we talked about the interacting with the clients, client management. Here the quality of the client support is so important. You'll be very surprised that one of my clients actually called my employees without our knowledge to see how we treat our employees. I was very surprised. We weren't even aware of it. They told us after 2-3 years. The reason we keep giving a business because you treat your employees very well. So we weren't aware of that. So a lot of times a good client, a well-known client will actually keep auditing you. And we really like client auditing us. Because it tells us whether we are doing it right or wrong. So at the peak of our company, we had 35 clients auditing us on a regular basis. Some system audits, some our process audits, some will come to our office saying that I don't see a emergency exit here. I was surprised, what does emergency do with my service to you? He won't listen to that. He says, I want to have my exit in your office. And we had to provide that. We had to cut the windows, we did everything. After 2 years anyway, we changed the office. But that is important. And we like the client saying that thing. Now this is what happens. We are aggressive in the first year, second time. Slowly our own team, we become arrogant. As things are happening in my own company in the past. My manager who has been there with me 5 years is now getting like 50 crore business. He's now arrogant now. Because he doesn't talk to the client properly. There's got a new client. If he's got a junior guy, I don't think I want to talk to you. Let me talk to your senior guy because I know how the business works. Please ensure that arrogance is killed immediately. It will kill your business right away. Aggression is very important. Be aggressive, be persistent, be perseverance, keep on working the client, but don't get arrogant, even for a second. And I have seen many companies actually has gone down because of that. If it's my competitors, it's unfortunately their loss, but my gain. Now you have to have everything in systems. Everything has to be system. You have to spend money, spend money. Whatever is required, every part of your business, from one end to other end, is there on your laptop or on your phone or whatever it is. Every part of your business. You cannot say that I will not have a system. I don't understand technology. I don't know how to system. Hire the best person in the industry, even for a short term. But you have to have systems. Now you have to do business audits. Financial audits is important. Business audits, your internal process. So I always used to like to have some consultants with me for 3-4 months. I'll tell them, go and meet all my employees. Go and meet all my managers. Go and see what we are doing is right or wrong. And sometimes I even give them access to some emails. See, are we writing good emails or not? Is this the right email that we should write? And always I keep telling them. Every year somebody else will come and do my audits. That's the only way, not only for me, even my team feels good about it. Okay, so I learn something more about that part. This is all part of the culture that you have built in the organization. Now, start working on your next CEO. So you got a good team, you got a good system, you got a good process. So whatever it is, whether from internal, mostly it should be from internal, start grooming that person. He or she, just start grooming the person. And you should be able to identify that. You should at least have 2 to 3 options, and hopefully one will succeed you. Now hiring becomes 30%. Because it becomes more and more important. Because now your business is taken care of it through systems, process and everything, but people are still your challenge. You go and talk to, I met Cognizant Lakshmi Narayan once in one of the conference in Thai, and I asked her, what's the biggest challenge? I wish I could have 40 managers, I would have grown my business 30 times, 30% more. And I agree with that. So once you're at that level, the business actually can grow 30%, 40% every year, but you're not able to grow because you don't have the right people with you. So you actually spend that kind of time in your company. Attrition. Now this is a topic which you can again talk a lot. My attrition at my top level, that is reporting to me and reporting to my managers, was almost like less than 5%. My attrition at the ground level was probably more than 50%, 80%. So attrition is very important. If someone says, zero attrition, I think this company cannot scale. It doesn't work. Yes, controlled attrition is very important. You need to have some attrition in the company so that complacency goes away. Always new people should keep coming in, and someone who is not done well, or is not doing well, should go out. Or it should keep growing. There has to be addition of the people in your organization. So I'll quickly go to individual transformation. I think I covered most of the points here because I don't think I have enough time. So this is individual level. What I spoke about the business level. I'm sure you're all domain expert. If you're not domain expert, you need to make sure you have a domain expert with you and all that. Industry Connect. Very important to have a co-founder, or you can hire a team. Always hire at least 1 or 2 people who are better than you in the organization. It doesn't matter what it costs you in equity or in cost, in the salary, or what it takes. I think Manohar was also mentioning about that in the past, in earlier presentation. Make sure you have a mentor. Very important to have a mentor, whoever it might be. Competitors. Keep track of competitors. Keep track of every competitor that you have. And also keep track of the companies that are not in your geography. Suppose you're working in Hyderabad or in India and you want to go to, let's say, Southeast Asian countries or Singapore or UK or USA or Canada. Okay, start working on getting the details of that. Maybe you don't need it now, but just keep finding out what's happening in that space. Let me keep track of it. And if you get a chance, if you're traveling, if there's an event happening of your domain, visit the event, visit the conference. Meet people and see what they say, what you're listening to them. Always you'll get to know some information. Research papers, as I mentioned to you earlier. Awards. Get as many awards as you can. Today there are so many institutes, they have no value, but the client likes it. Seriously, I'm saying that. The client loves to see which industry you are associated with it, which awards you got. Why? Because whoever gives you an award, whoever has given you a membership, has done some homework on you. So if I see that 8 people are talking good about you, that means I think I can trust this company. So it has a value add. If you're a member of TIE, if you're a member of NASCOM, if you're a member of your organization, and if you got some award for best client or best innovation or best service, make sure you get it up. Always. It has, and if you can become partners of some, like Microsoft, if you're a technology company, you can become a partner of Microsoft or IBM or SAP or Oracle. Become the partner if you can. And tell them, because they can't make you partner just like that, am I right? So all of this thing has a value add. Certifications, awards, whatever you can get with minimal cost, please. Don't try to spend too much money here and time on that. Industry memberships. Advisors, now you actually start getting advisors. They play a very significant role if you want to get good clients and if you want to get deeper into the client's business. You want to get more business from the same client. Very important to have advisors. Metrics. Sometimes you define metrics based on business, sometimes you define metrics based on you. Because I want to become, you said, remote management. I don't want to manage the company anymore. I want to delegate a lot of things slowly. So one of the things that I learned very early in my life, in my career in IBM in New York, from an Italian guy, redundancy. Every 2 years, he'll change his job, change his role in the company. Because he's done such a good job, it's done, he'll move on to the next role. I ensured that I followed the same formula with me also in my company. So I've ensured that someone can do this job, now I can move and do something else. So those metrics, you define that, what am I doing today? There's nothing to do with the business. Okay, I'm managing the 5 clients. Can I now hire someone and train that person? Because when you're delegating it, you're training someone at the same time. You're sharing the knowledge. You're sharing all the information so that person does a better job than what you were doing. You're creating a fearless environment with that person so they can ask questions. I'm stuck here. Team bonding. So, 100 crores, redundancy, we just talked about that, delegation, building leaders, moving away from the operations. So, in the last 3-4 years of my earlier company, I hardly bother about what is happening because I used to get data every minute or every hour or every whichever I was looking for. Here in the current company I took over, I actually spend only 1 hour a day with the company. So everything is visible to me, what's happening there. I don't have to deal to day-to-day operations anymore. Strategy, so you spend time now, you have a lot of time. You can spend time on strategy, how to scale the business, where to go, geographically you want to expand, or you want to go different businesses add. So you have a lot of time to think about it. Okay, what is it I want to do this year? What is it I want to do next year? And what kind of people do you need to hire to do that thing? And where do I get these people from? Now you start spending time on finance. Because it's a very big place, very big time that you need to spend. Because I'm not a finance guy. And CFOs don't come cheap. So you understand the finance, you probably talk to the people in that industry and see how to manage your finance. Is there a way that I can save? Because 1% of savings is in the bottom line. It improves your profitability. So when I started the company in the last time, it was 6% profitability. And when it became mature to 100 crores turnover, my job was to actually improve the overall profitability. So I took it to 10%. But when you're growing, you can't do that. Remember that. Only when it becomes stabilized, when you reach critical mass, you can start doing that. Profitability, process, so you start figuring into all this process part. So I think that's that. Any questions now? Yes.
All about incentives, right? Like,
yes.
You were advised to monitor that dairy incentives.
That's
How
right.
did you do that?
I think that took a lot of effort. There's a lot of fine tuning, and you keep changing incentives every year to ensure that it's actually having an impact to the individual who is actually getting incentives. And how do you distribute incentives is very important. When you distribute incentives is very important. And incentives is so easy that I can calculate my incentives within less than 30 seconds. So make it too complicated that I have to take an Excel sheet and enter the data and this thing, and then it becomes like ambiguity. What you're saying is what you thought you will learn, and what I'm saying is not the same. It won't work. And so when you're going to have incentives, it's very important that you hire an employee, not with the full salary, because so that you can keep that much money for incentives. And not your cost of doing business will again come down. Will go up.
Yes. The incentive be person-based or a team-based?
I never believed in team-based incentives, unfortunately. Somehow it never worked. Those incentives was made sure that everybody in the team gets incentives. But I defined how the incentives.
The individual carries and the individual.
Yes. But so I always define incentives to everybody.
But do we see that there will be a lot of, sometimes, if the person is more focused on doing his work rather than seeing how the team works, when it is correlated?
No, that's where I ensure that he's not wasting time on saying how much he's getting or how much he's doing. So the thing is we make sure that he's incentivized for what he's doing, and he also gets some incentives if the team is done well. So that he's also performing to the full thing around.
So on the same topic of incentives, we mentioned that the current company is going through a phase where it still has to make the break even stuff like that.
Yeah.
In such a case, what would be a good way to kind of strategize this incentives? Because every startup has to go through this thing.
That's what I mentioned earlier. Like, so you don't suppose if the maximum salary you can offer is 6 lakhs. You try to hire a person at 5 lakhs, and you make an incentive of 1.5 lakhs or 2 lakhs. You got a point. Because if you don't have the money to give the incentives, then don't just commit it. It won't work. Make sure when you have incentives, you actually make sure you give the money to him. But the incentives is almost like a extra money that an individual gets. And they're very excited about getting that extra money.
Employees are choosing the branded companies for any job. So at that time, how can we plan as a startup company? Because for a
to hire good people.
So the same will be given, the same amount will be given to them, even offer them, even though they are hesitating to come.
So that's where you come in. Okay. How good are you telling your story? How good are you telling your vision to them? So they know that if they go to a big company, they may get good money, but they will, after 1 or 2 years, they're not going to get raises. They'll maximum get 10%, 12%. But if your company is going to go 50% every year, like I had an employee join at 4 lakhs, and after 4 years or 3 years, 5 years, the salary was 25 lakhs.
But they are expecting the experience will be higher companies experience. They are feeling great. So
they'll get overcome very fast. When you talk to their friends and their seniors in the classes, they'll tell them don't worry about that part, because I'm not getting any more incremental that I have to my effort and all that. Whereas in startup, company is growing, I'm also growing with the company. Okay, so the way you present is very important.
My startup is into smart cities. I'm currently working with smart governance working group with Government of India. You listed out so many factors. How do you go about converting government initiatives into?
Unfortunately, I try to keep away mile away from the government so, because it's unpredictable for me. So I'm sorry, I don't think I have that experience to answer that.
One question.
Yes, sir, please, sir.
Yeah, mentorship.
Yeah.
Is it good to have mentor from the industry what you are into, or is it someone is totally aware of your industry? Which is better?
I just answered her. I probably have like a mentor who understands me. I would prefer that, and who's a lot more experience than me, no question about it. A lot more thing, but who understands me. Doesn't have to come from the same industry. For that, I'll use advisors.